Okay, my outstanding friends, this is going to be fun. What would I have to do to disprove Darwinism and prove creationism? Well, first of all, what is Darwinism? Now, there's a couple of concepts of Darwin. First of all, evolution and survival of the fittest. Yes, I don't disagree with that at all. But where did the origin of the species begin? The origin means where did everything start? That is, to me, creation. Can I prove creation versus Darwin saying... the other thing is, like I say, there's a variety of ways to look at Darwinism. Is he saying that we all evolved from a single bacteria? And basically, where did that bacteria come from? Like cells advance and turn into all kinds of different creatures and people and all that stuff. Is that Darwinism? Or is that evolution? Or is evolution just, that we do change? Yes, absolutely. There's no question about this. And Darwinism, survival of the fittest? Yes, absolutely no question about that. Where did the origin of the species come from? That, to me, is Darwinism. All right? Let's find out where the origin of the species came from, and what do they have to say about it in mainstream. As far as I know, they say we all evolved from a single-celled bacteria, but they have no way to say where that bacteria came from. But there's this guy, James Tour, who's a chemist, screaming about people trying to create artificial life, saying that if they can make an artificial cell, well, that's just going to turn into all kind of people and monkeys and everything else, like Darwin said. So he's fighting like crazy against that, but he has no clue what he's doing. I'm telling you, James Tour is lost. I tried to work with him, and I'm trying to show him evolution and Darwinism is insane. Well, again, how do you look at it? Just because they can develop a cell, does that mean that's the theory of life from now on? Because once they created a cell in a laboratory? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything. How did they get to be able to create a cell? Where did they come from? These scientists, they're just lost. It's like the cell just came from nowhere. No. We could create cells. I believe that's possible, yes. Will they function like normal living cells? They may be able to. Who made the cell? Where did that guy come from? I want to get to the beginning of the beginning, and you never get to the beginning of the beginning because the beginning of the beginning is God. All you can say is God created the heavens and the earth. That, to me, is creationism. I don't know where God came from. No clue. But I can tell you one thing right now. From my research, there is nothing that exists that is not biological. God created the heavens and the earth. And in the heavens, the heavens are filled with things too. So it appears that God created all this stuff. Now, where he came from, again, I have no idea. But to me, that's creationism. We just created the heaven and the earth. And when you go back to the ancient texts, they all basically say the same things in sort of little innuendo and nuances and so forth. But the sky ruled over the earth, and they literally made it. And that's where all the creatures came from. The sky mated with the earth, wedded the earth. Let's go through they all say the same thing. Okay, my friends, what I want you to do is listen really carefully and think as you're listening. This is Genesis. This is right at the beginning of the Bible. Now, and I'm going to show you all the different texts, so this is just one of them. Now, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. To me, that's all the planets, everything. He created everything there is, the heavens, the earth, the planets, the sun, the moon, all that stuff. And the earth was without form. It was chaos. It was just whatever it was. And it was void. No creatures, nothing on it. the darkness was upon the face of the deep. All right, so there must have been waters or some deepness down in there. And the darkness was on it. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And that is what all the other religions say was where the sky mated with the earth. That's what they say, which would be creation. And then God said, let there be light, and there was light. Light is the energy that creates everything. If you don't have light, your plants won't grow. You can't grow things you can't eat. Everything came from light. So light is everything. Light is not even understood, so we're going to get into that later. But he said the light, and it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. All right, we know when it's light and when it's dark. And I can show you that in photons, there's a white part and there's a black part. He divided the light part from the dark part. I'm going to show you that. And he called the light day and the darkness night. Okay, there's no banging of the electrons during the day. During the night. That's the white part. All right, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And then it goes on from there. I don't want to get too deep into each one of these. I just want to say, how are they saying these things snapped into existence? God says, Genesis says this is what happened, is the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. To me, they're intermingling, and the sky, which is the Spirit of God, owned everything, moved on the waters of what he created was the earth, and it started life. That's my take on creation. Now, this also says basically the same thing. This is Apollodorus. He wrote in, I think it was about 180 BC, right in that era. And he was writing everything that was said. And they call it he wrote about basically a library. And this is the library, book 1. Sky was the first who ruled over the whole world. So you had the sky, and then you got the world. Having wedded the earth, he begat his first, the 100-handed. And they crazy things after this. But, it's just insane. But then it goes into the Cyclopses, and then Tartarus and Hades, and all of these things. And all of the planets were literally creatures. They were gods. And they could change their form into anything they wanted. Now look at this. This is the contents of the library. The birth of Zeus from the Theogony. The war of the Titans. Olympian gods. Apollo and Artemis. Demeter and Persephone. War of the giants. Typhon. 1.6.3 is about Typhon. And he's in the desert. So I give this full... I'm not laughing at anything it says here, although it's insane. Absolutely crazy. Anybody that would even consider this would be insane, except we have the evidence now. Now, Prometheus was Deucalion's father. Deucalion was Noah. All right, you got Greeks and you got Romans and you got other people. They called everybody else different names according to their languages or whatever. But Prometheus was the one that gave mankind a lot of stuff that he wasn't supposed to. And he was Noah's father. He told Noah to build a chest. I think he called it a chest. To hide away during the turmoil and float around in the ocean until it was all over. Anyway, it goes on and on and on, and they're all, and then that's just book 1, and then book 2, book 3, now, and this goes into the Trojan Wars, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and all of that stuff. And this is Kronos. He was swallowing his children, and Zeus waged war against his father. It was just... It's really insane, but I'm telling you, they all had the same story. Now, what do we got here? Greek mythology. This is about the Greeks and the body of the Greek works and ancient Greek folklore. This is we call it mythology. I call it history now. And this is Hesiod. Hesiod's Theogony. He was writing about Zeus. What happened with Hesiod? He was a sheep herder. I believe sheep, goats, something like that. And he was out just doing his sheep thing, and the daughters of Zeus showed up. They're called the Muses. They sing on velvet feet and velvet-toned songs and so forth. And they're like our theater type of people and singers and so forth. They're the passionate, or I don't know what you'd call it, the creative part of the human soul. And they told him to write all of these great things about their father, Zeus, which he did. But he couldn't write. They said, we're going to give you a rod to write with. And he said it was the most marvelous thing. And he wrote all these things about Zeus. Now, that was 800 BC. That is only 3,000 years ago. To me, I say Zeus was here 3,500 years ago in that area. Now listen to this. The initial state of the universe is chaos, dark, indefinite void, considered a divine primordial condition from which everything else appeared. Theogonies are a part of Greek mythology. He wrote the whole thing, and even how the earth turned into a ball by spinning through the space. I mean, he was and all about Typhon. The succession stories of how the kids killed their fathers to take over. One of them was about, I forget who it was, but this is absolutely crazy. The husband and wife were in control. It was like a king and a queen. Now, the queen had a son. The son was, really strong and, powerful son. And she turned against her husband. And she said, my son should rule. And I want my husband out. Now listen to this, though. The tradition there was that when a new guy took over in a coup, he castrated the original king, and then he took the king's wife as his bride. So this guy cut his father's testicles off and took his own mother for his bride. And that's what he did. That's what it says. I mean, some of the stuff in here, you read about Perseus and Medusa and some of his exploits, it's just freak you out to no end. And I now believe these things were true because I have found creatures that were turned to stone, and no question whatsoever about it. And if anybody wants to confront me about it, I can easily confront them and show them exactly what Ovid said. Ovid wrote Metamorphosis. Now, that's the next one we're probably going to take a look at, is Metamorphosis. How does he say everything happened? What did the gods do? And what were the gods capable of? Well, I can tell you one thing. They could turn you to stone, just like that. They could turn themselves into an animal, just like that. They could turn themselves into fungus, just like that. Anything they wanted. Zeus turned himself into rain. You want to hear another story? It just gets crazy. This is just over the top crazy. I should look up the exact details, but I'm just going to give you the brief on it. There was this king, and he had a daughter. And his daughter, well, here's the story. A prophet, the king went to one of these seers, and he said, how long will I live? And the seer said, I can't tell you that. I don't know. But I can tell you that you will be killed by your grandson. And he said, what? And he says, yes, your grandson will kill you. So his daughter had never conceived. He didn't have a grandson. So what he did was he took his daughter and locked her away in a room that apparently all she could do was be fed through a little crack. And there was no windows, no doors, no nothing. And she, I don't know how she survived in there, but that's the story, basically. She was sequestered away and could not get out. Was Zeus, who is literally the planet Jupiter. All right, that's what it says. He is Jupiter. He comes down to Earth as golden rain. And he comes down all over this building that she's in, and he sees her through the crack somehow in this building. And he sneaks through, and he gets inside, and he has sex with her, and she gets pregnant and has a son. So now the guy, the grandfather, does have a grandson. The grandson grows up to be strong and pretty mighty. So what he does, and his grandson is Perseus. So what he does is he tells Perseus, I want you to go kill Medusa. Which everybody knew you couldn't kill Medusa. She had, you get near her, you look at her, she's going to turn you into stone. And she did. I mean, everybody. And I'm telling you right now, that happened. They could do that. Now, Perseus is loyal to his grandfather. He doesn't want to kill him. So he says, all right, I'll go do what you tell me to do. I'm going to go get Medusa, and I'll take her head off, and I'll bring it back to you. Because that's what he wanted. He says, you bring that head back to me. So what Perseus does is he polishes a shield so polished that he can look at it as a mirror. And he can see her without actually looking at her. Now, it has something to do with frequencies, apparently, because he's looking into the mirror, and it did not turn him stone. He was able to cut her head off, put it in a bag. He's on his way back to bring this to his father-in-law. I mean, his grandfather. And he ends up being attacked by, I guess, like 400 guys. And he had a few of his guys with him, and he fought against them. And then there was no way he's going to fight 400 guys. So he says, anybody that's a friend, close your eyes, do not look. And he pulls out the Medusa head, and all of them turn to stone, 200 of them, just like right there instantly. And one guy was swinging his sword at another guy, and by the time it hit him, he was already stone. He thought he was, as it started to swing, the guy was alive. As he hit him, it went bing, he was stoned. That's how fast they could change. Now listen to this, it gets even better than this. Perseus is on the way back, so he gets attacked by all these guys, and he turns them all to stone. But one of his buddies, Astyages, happened to look over, and he turned to stone too. Or they had all these amazed looks on their face, he said, and he turned Phineas into stone too. This is book 5 in Ovid. Phineas is turned to stone. Ovid wrote an epic work. It was as well received as was the Bible. Now, so Phineas is turned. Hold on one second. Let me regroup my thoughts. Okay, yeah. Phineas is turned to stone, and Perseus is headed back with the head. So in the meantime, he passes by this competition that they're having, all kinds of competitions, and one of them was discus throwing. So they have this big coliseum and a discus, and you can only throw the discus so far, more or less. Now the grandfather knows that Perseus has prevailed over Medusa, and he figures he's coming back to kill me. So the grandfather goes out hiding as a beggar. He's all dressed like a beggar, and he's out wandering the streets like a beggar so that nobody will suspect him of being the king. So Perseus wants to enter this competition. He's all for being a nice guy to his grandfather, but he's out coming back, and he sees the competition. He figures, all right, I'm going to enter. So he enters, and there's a discus competition. Now, his grandfather happens to be at this competition, but he's way, way, way in the back at the cheap seats, hanging out with people that had no money. They couldn't get in, and he's so far out of the action that nobody can see him. So he feels pretty confident nobody's going to bother him. So Perseus winds up like crazy, throws a discus. It goes completely out of the stadium, hits his father-in-law right in the head and kills him. I mean, his grandfather. kind of stuff. When they prophesize something, you know, I don't know if that's true or not, that happened, but I can tell you what, people were turned to stone. And Ovid said they did it just for fun, and they turned him into the landscape. That's the first words out of his mouth. Well, I'll show you what the first words out of his mouth. Here it is right here. Look, here's what happened. Disappointed by his lack of luck in having a son, Creationism, who was the grandfather, consults the oracle at Delphi. The oracle says and warns him he will one day be killed by his daughter, Danae's son. Danae is childless, and to keep her so, he imprisoned her in a bronze chamber open to the sky in the courtyard of his palace. And that's it. Zeus impregnates her in the form of a golden shower. Some accounts say it is her uncle Proteus who impregnates her. Well, anyway, it's going to be his grandson. So Danae becomes pregnant with Perseus. Now, I thought she was locked in a room, and there's other stories that say she was locked in a windowless room that nobody could get into. But anyway, this one says in a bronze chamber open to the sky. Now, Danae becomes pregnant with Perseus. Croesus puts the child and Danae in a chest and throws it into the sea. Zeus asks Poseidon to calm the water. He does, and Danae and Perseus survive, washing up on the Isle of Seriphus. A fisherman named Dictys, brother of King Polidius, finds the pair and takes care of them. So now the grandfather thinks that Perseus wants to kill him for doing this. Perseus grows up to be a hero. He killed Medusa, and rescuing Artemida, Perseus and Danae return to Argos with Artemia, but King Acrisius has gone to Larissa. When Perseus arrives in Larissa, he participates in funeral games and accidentally strikes his grandfather on the head with a discus, killing him and fulfilling the prophecy. It's beyond belief, but I don't know. I just don't know anymore. You know, whether a lot of these are just silly tales or not, I can tell you, people were turned to stone. That's as far as I can get to, but that I do know. See, here's how quick it can happen. Look, they all deserved the punishment they deserved except one of Perseus's warriors. While he was helping Perseus, he was fighting on his side. A conscience saw the Gorgon's head and took the shape of hardened stone. Astyages struck him with his longsword, thinking he was still alive, and the blade gave a high-pitched ringing noise. Astyages stood there amazed. The same power transformed him. He remained there with a wondering look on his marble face. 200. It would take a long time to tell the names of the middle ranks of men. 200 bodies survived the fight. 200 bodies turned to stone at the sight of the Gorgon's head. Now, at last, Phineas regrets the fight, begging for his life, but he turned him to stone, too. This is just crazy stuff. This is Book 5. Phineas is turned to stone. Minerva on Helicon. The contest between Parides and Muses. I think there was a singing contest. The muse was speaking, wings sounded in the air, and voices in greeting came out of the high branches. I think it was a flock of crows or something, ravens. The daughter of Jupiter looked up. These were the muses. The daughter of Jupiter looked up and questioned where the sounds came from. There was so much like mouths speaking and thought it human, though it was bird song. 9 of them, magpies, that's what it was, that imitate everything, had settled in the branches, bemoaning their fate. While she wondered, the other began speaking, goddess to goddess. Defeated in a contest, they have been added only recently to the flocks of birds. Because they defeated them in a contest, they just turned them into birds or something. I don't know. Pyrrhus and Pella, rich in the fields, was their father. and whoever this guy was their mother, or woman was their mother. 9 times while giving birth, she called 9 times to powerful Lucinias. Swollen with pride in their numbers, this crowd of foolish sisters came here to us through the many cities of Achaia and Harmonia and challenged us to a singing competition, saying, "Stop cheating the untutored masses with your empty sweetness. If you have faith in yourselves, contend with us, you goddess of Tempi. We cannot be outdone in voice or art, and we are your equals in numbers. If you are defeated, you can grant us the Heliconian fountains and Hipparchus of Medusa's offspring. Or we will grant you the Amphitrite plains as far as snow-covered Peneo. Let the nymphs decide the outcome." It was shameful to compete with them, but it seemed more shameful to concede. This just goes on and on forever. Calliope sings, Cupid makes Dis fall in love. Calliope sings Dis and the rape of Proserpine. Calliope sings, they're all... This goes forever, forever. And here's the Jupiters again. They're asking for the help of the gods. Help us. Very, very, very interesting stuff. And this is just book 5. These are all the books. And this is only book 5. And I think I know he has 15 books. Okay, now, as I said before, this is a story of every different culture. And how do they think everything started? What was the first original stories written? Now, this is the Norse creation myth. This one here, they're all crazy, but this one here is like on the top of that crazy list. All right, listen to this now. At the beginning of time, nothing existed. So they're saying at the beginning of time, there was nothing. Now, how something happened, nobody can say, not a single one of them. The earth, the gentle oceans lapping up against its shores, man and animal had not yet been created. So there was nothing. Only a great yawning abyss was present in the void of nothingness. So there's just nothing. Out of this abyss, a land of eternal mist, darkness, and terrible cold was formed to the north. To all beings, this land was known as Niflheim. All right, so now they're talking about beings and cold, and somehow, how did that happen? Nobody knows. That's the key. Nobody knows. Now, in the midst of the darkness, land surged, a fountain known as Hyberglor, from which spread the freezing glacial waters of 12 rivers throughout the void. So it's in this whole mess of void, I don't know, this is very confusing. To the south lay the land of fire. So you got your hot and your cold. And that's really that's what light is hot and cold. All right? To the south lay the land of fire, Muspelheim, an infernal region of unbearable, unsatiable heat and flames. From there poured rivers of fire, whose waters contained a bitter poison which little by little gathered and became a solid mass of poison. From the ice flowing from the north, this mass of venom was covered in a thick layer of frost. With the heat blowing from the lands of the fire, the frost began to melt, and the giant Ymir was born from poison and ice. Oh, God. It doesn't get much stranger than this. No, Ymir became the father of all giants. Every single one of them talks about the giants. I don't care what culture you're talking about. They all had the giants. There was giants in the earth in those days. And then after that, there was more giants when the daughters when the sons of God went into the daughters of man. The sons of God were the angels. They weren't supposed to do that. They were supposed to keep watch, 600 angels, they were watchers. They were supposed to watch over and help man develop into a good way of life. And instead, they came down and had sex parties and just went crazy. 200 of them said, this is just too much to pass up. let's get together, but you got to sign off on this, otherwise God's going to really mess me up. So they did, and it ended up being messed up and causing all kinds of problems. And anyway, so this was the father of all giants. On the night of his creation, so he was created. Where'd that happen? How'd that happen? He fell asleep near the lands of south and became completely bathed in sweat. From under his left arm were born man and woman, both giants like him. At the same time, the block of ice from which he was born gave forth the great cow Anula, the wet nurse of the giants. Ymir refreshed himself from her udders at the beginning of every day, which flowed with life-giving milk. Adula began to lick the salt from the ice to nourish herself, and the heat of her tongue and breath yielded first the hair, then the head, and finally the entire body of a being whose name was Buri. Buri had a son whose name was Bor, who went on to marry Ymir's daughter, Besla. With her he fathered the three gods Odin, Vili, and Vi. The three sons of the giants' race at once began to rebel against their creators. There's always that rebellion. There's always the secession story. The sons killed the fathers. It was always trying to take control of power. Every one of them, 100% of them. In my opinion, that's what it was. It's all about control. All right, so now we're going to go into the Islamic. What did they say about the origin of everything? And religion, mythology, they all talk about that sort of stuff. But what are they have biblical stories in the Quran, the same things that are in the Bible. Quran includes many biblical narratives. Moses, Abraham, Joseph, Jesus. They talk about all of these. And this is their creation story of the world. In the Quran, the heavens and the earth were joined together as one. They made it, which was the unit of creation, just like basically hovering over the waters and moved on the waters, after which they were cloven asunder. They were brought apart. So the heavens and the earth created together, and I believe at that time that's when creatures were created, and then they were split apart. After the parting, they simultaneously came into their present shape after going through a phase when they were smoke-like. The Quran states that the process of creation took 6 yum. In the Quran, the word yum translates to era, which means days. According to the Musafirs, Islam acknowledges 3 different types of creation. All right, so there's 3 different types of creation in Islam. So one of them is ex nihilo in time, a position especially held by most classical scholars. God existed alone in eternity. He was all by himself until God's command, be, thereupon the world came into existence. This world is absolutely distinct from God, totally different. Accordingly, the world was neither created out of his own essence, nor did God create the world out of a primordial matter, which preceded the creation, but created by his sheer command, not bound by the laws of nature. He just said, let it be, and it just happened, because he had that ability. Nobody, and nobody can say where it happened. I don't care who you are. Emanation, here's the other part, is found especially among scholars such as Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina. Accordingly, the world was created out of nothing, but not in time. The world was eternal, but temporary in essence. All right, so the world is here, but it's temporary now, and it probably will come back. That's what they keep saying. Well, there's been many, and they keep coming back. Creation and out of primordial matter. This is the third type, maintained by scholars such as Ibn Judra. God fashioned the whole world out of a primordial matter, the waters and the smoke. So basically it means nobody knows. But they all have the same stories about giants, about dragons, about, the world being created some mystical way, and then life being a product of that creation. Not just accidental, some molecules bumped into each other and started doing all the things that we see today. That's just not realistic. I mean, you got to... And they know this. I mean, they know it's not possible. So what are they doing? They're saying, well, we can create a synthetic cell. And if you can create a synthetic cell, well, that means that life could be spontaneous. No. That synthetic cell, first of all, wasn't just created by bouncing around molecules, shaking it up in a jar. They had to do a lot of stuff if they can make one that has actually the ability to live and reproduce and create enzymes. I mean, it's just not possible. It's just never going to happen by itself. So I'm going with creation as a much more attractive alternative to slime turning into everything. And where does slime even come from? That's the key. Nobody knows any of this stuff. All you can do is start with, what does everybody say happened? And they all say the earth and the sky had a sexual union, and the product appears to be life, first of all, and the sustainability of Earth to support that life. Now, how that all could happen, it's beyond anybody's comprehension. However, the things that I show support this, and they are beyond anybody's comprehension. I have found that the smarter you are, the less likely you are to be able to understand truth, because you basically have been told you're smart because you've been indoctrinated. And then once that happens, it's very, very hard for that person to put that aside and say, let me scientifically and rationally look at this irrational stuff. Because I'm presenting factual evidence and all the things that I have shown, all of these, like this guy standing on somebody's stomach. That's what a stomach is. This is Vermilion Cliffs. It's all over the place out there. You see this? That's all blood. These are Vermilion Cliffs. This is some kind of gut. I think it's a stomach, but it's this is biology, and the Earth is literally a biological creature. Now, it's in trouble, I can tell you that. Mars was destroyed by Venus when it hit. This is how big the creatures are. This is tendons. These are right down to the tiniest little tendon fibrils. That's these right here. See them in these bundles? See these bundles? That's these bundles right here. These little squares. Or not squares, whatever they are. You know what they are. But look at how tiny they get down to. And this Devil's Tower is a foot, and Giant's Causeway is literally body parts of a giant. The Earth is so much different than anybody ever thought. Even tendons. You see this tendon? This is the way tendon balls grow in the body, in certain places in the body. They call it tendon anthesis. This is locks it in, and then you have a tendon that comes out of here to pulls on your muscles and all that. What happens is it develops, it creates crystals in the center, and then you get to this crystallized form in the center of the tendon balls. So if you were inside of this, you would see all these fibers, and you'd see a ceiling like this of really almost like blood. Have we ever seen one of those? Well, I have. There it is right there. Here's your ceiling, and here's all that crystal support that held up the ceiling. And here's some guys crawling around on those crystals. I'm going to tell you right now, you have to see the things that I present, and then you'll understand this is a biological universe. And why do I say that? There was wars in the heaven. They all wrote the same thing. They had wars in the heavens, killing each other, gigantic, monstrous creatures. This is a tendon enthesis. I just showed you that's the ball. That's the stalk that comes up. And then you have the muscle. And this is where the muscle would have been right here. This is the tendon. And then muscle starts up here. Don't forget, remember the ball. You got the ball. Well, here's a better shot of it. You got the ball down here. And all these are as anchors. There's no blood in here. The blood comes up here into this way. There's some blood, maybe a little bit here and there, but they're solid balls, and they lock in. And then there's flesh, let's say, right up in this area here, and that's locked in, and it pulls against these straps. And then there's little bits of blood coming up. Now, this is what we do see right here in this meteorite. There's the ball. I mean, it's a meteor. Meteorites are when they hit the Earth. And I have some here that are biological as well, no question whatsoever. This ball is the anchor and the enthesis. This little bundle right here is some form of, I believe it's another strip of tendon that came away from this, like in a shoulder or something, because you got tendon going 4 or 5 different ways in some places in your body, because you're pulling against your arms, all kinds of different things. Now, where it was in the body, I have no clue, but this is the anchor, this is the stalk, and then maybe I believe another stalk, and this is the tendon right here. These are the tendon fibers. These little pinchy bundles would have gone somewhere to do something, I don't know what. And then this is where it eroded off the top. Now, this was fed with blood. When these come close to the sun, they literally cook. They cook. And what happens when they cook? This is what happens. That right there is not dust blowing off. And this is not dust blowing off and going this direction and that direction and this direction and all these different things. No. This is not smoking. Why isn't this dust coming off of here or whatever it is? Why does this not have any dust blowing? Everywhere else it's shooting out little bits and pieces all over the place of the dust. Here's nothing. It's in the same light. The reason is there's no bloodiness to this, basically. This right here is as bloody as it gets. This is your artery, or somebody's artery, and it came down into this tendon enthesis, and then it was fed up through these little tiny blood vessels. Because they're everywhere. I showed you the picture of it. They're everywhere. They go up to service the tendon a little bit. And then when you hit the muscle, it's all blood. And that's why it's gone, because it's just floppy and it doesn't hold up. Okay, once again, none of this is meant to disrupt anybody's religious feelings or any of that stuff. This is just what was written. Did this already happen? All right, I probably best to leave it right about this point for now, because there's so much researching to do that it's a big job. Let me put it that way. I've been really working at this, trying to understand, and you get confused very easily. But as things are starting to sort of mold into position, but this is Revelations 12. Now, this is King James Version, but I'm trying to look into the claims made in these ancient texts. And the Bible, to me, is an ancient text. It's an ancient history story. Now, it has slants one way or the other, depending who wrote it. I don't know who wrote it. They say these are the words straight from the lips of God. I don't know if that's true or not. All I know is these were the words that were written. Can I make any sense of them? And yes, I can. Because Revelations 12 is something that may or may not have already happened. Now, apparently, what I understand is this was written by, I can't remember who it was, on Patmos, on the island of Patmos. I think it was John. I can't remember. But one of the disciples, he was he was, exiled to this island of Patmos. And he wrote this Revelations. And he says, a great wonder appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon was under her feet, upon her head a crown of 12 stars. All right, so now, to me, I'm talking about it literally on the moon, a woman standing there, and from behind you could see the sun and 12 stars up around her head somewhere. I would imagine that was behind her. I'm going for the material stuff here, because they were big and they were in space. No question. I showed you Comet 67P. No question whatsoever. They were big. They were in space. Now, she was with child, and she was travailing in birth and in pain to be about, she's going to deliver. And then another wonder in the heaven, a giant red dragon, had 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns upon his heads. She had 12 stars for crowns around her head. If that means something, I don't know. His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. Now, there were supposed to be 600 watchers. Satan apparently hooked up with 200 guys. That's 1/3 of 600. So they were all the stars in heaven. It appears to me he swept 200 of them down and did cast them to the earth with him. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered. So he had taken 1/3 of the stars in heaven and cast them to earth to have a party. They're down on earth having a party. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. She brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Now, that's an interesting statement. She had brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. That sounds like a pretty tough guy to me. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So this child was God's child, or God's adopted child, whatever, brought up to his throne to be with God. The woman fled into the wilderness, and she hath prepared a place by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's 1,260 days. And there was a war in the heavens. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought, and his angels fought back. They prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven, right to earth. The great dragon was cast out, the old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, was cast out into the earth, and his angels cast out with him. I heard a loud voice saying in heavens, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. Now listen to this. This is sort of hard to understand. The accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. I really don't understand that. I got to be honest with you. I've looked at that a lot and I can't understand it. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto their death. That's kind of hard to understand too, exactly what that means. But, excuse me, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Because the heavens are going to, okay, now the earth is in trouble. All right, let's talk about this again, because this is where it gets interesting. They overcame him, which is Satan, by the blood of the Lamb, which I guess is Jesus, and by the word of their testimony. So they testified for Jesus, and they loved not their lives unto the death. They said, I will die for Jesus. And then they were going to be accepted in heaven. Then it says, he was thrown to earth. So here's where it comes into, earth has been in trouble since that day. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of earth and of the sea. The devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he know that he hath but a short time. So we have been under the spell of the devil right along. And I can tell you right now, I'm pretty sure that's true. When the dragon saw he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnants of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, did this already happen, or did it not happen? There's a lot of thinking to be talked about here. Because to me, I think this might have already happened. All of those things were written about pretty much the same thing. The dragon ate the babies when they were born. And one of them was stolen away and hidden away to rule over everybody, and that was going to be Zeus. Now this just says a baby, and it was caught up unto God. The man-child who was to rule the nations with a rod of iron, that was Zeus. Well, he did rule with a rod of iron, let's just go with that. And her child, who was, to my mind, Zeus, was caught up unto God, who was the commander God, the real major God, up in his throne. And he was all taken care of. But the dragon wanted to kill him, wanted to eat him, because he knew he would be overthrown by this child with the rod of iron. Okay, so I'm showing you the creation story. So where does that leave Jesus Christ? Well, Jesus was born, they say, to a Virgin Mary in a small village, a remote corner of the world. That humble birth fulfilled the hopes and dreams of all of us. All right, he was the Savior. He was the Son of God with infinite knowledge and power, yet he was also mortal and susceptible to hunger and pain. Jesus Christ fully experienced the challenges and sorrows of this life. All right? He knows each of us and understands us perfectly. There may have been more to Jesus coming here to save us. It may have also been for him to come and understand humanity, how, like he says, to understand us perfectly. Now, early preparation. As a young man, Jesus was teaching the Word of God. At 12 years old, he taught in the temple. All that heard him were astonished at his understanding when Jesus began his ministry. Now listen to this. In this, I think it's the Syriac version of Christianity, the Christ story, infancy. I think it's called the infancy. They claim that Jesus stood up in the cradle at, I believe it was like 7 days old, and said, "I am the Son of God, I am here for the salvation of mankind." And then he laid back down and took a nap or something. I don't know. It's and Jesus talks about, you will ask a small child in the cradle. It's something about that. It's very, very dizzying, all the things. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to leave it up to at this point. But the last points I'm going to make here is about all the new texts that were found, starting with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Upended everything that we had thought. Talked about the giants, talked about all that stuff. Then, just after World War II finished, 1945, Nag Hammadi showed up. They found these in caves over in the Holy Lands. And these are the Nag Hammadi tests. Now, these are Gnostic. Gnostic texts are knowledge. Gnostic means knowledge. It means understanding. And here's exactly, Apocryphon is the secrets. All right, this is the Gospel of Thomas. And Gospel of Thomas was Doubting Thomas. He was the guy that he didn't believe Jesus came back. He had to put his finger in the hole, make sure it was Jesus. And he said, wow. Now, Doubting Thomas, though, while he was alive, Jesus was alive, he was Jesus' scribe, like his right-hand guy. He wrote down everything that Jesus said that had meaning. And here's the first two are most meaningful. Jesus said, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. And you're never going to figure them out, I can guarantee you. But do the best you can. That's what I'm trying to do. Jesus said, those who seek, like us, should not stop seeking. Don't stop until you find. And don't think you found in 10 minutes. This takes some searching, my friends. It's seeking. When they find, they will be disturbed. All right? And I was very disturbed, and I'm sure you were too. When they are disturbed, they will marvel. And if you don't marvel over the things that we have discovered, you have no marvel in you. And then they will reign over all. It appears to me that if you do the seeking and you do the understanding, once you're done with this life, they're going to put you in charge of something. I don't know what. See, and it says they will reign over all, and after they have reigned, they will rest. Now, 56 and 80 talk about the things that I've been showing. Well, here's 80. Hold on. All right. Jesus said, whoever has come to know the world has discovered the body. Because the world is bodies and corpses and all that. And whoever has discovered the body of that one, the world is not worthy. Now listen to this one. This is a killer here. A woman in the crowd said to him, lucky are the womb that bore you and the breasts that fed you. He said to her, lucky are those who have heard the word of the Father and have truly kept it. That's your obligation, to listen and keep to that word of peace and compassion and love. For there will be a day when you will say, lucky are the womb that has not conceived and the breasts that have not given milk. If you don't hear the word and keep it, you're in trouble. He's telling you right now, you're going to... God didn't design hell and devastation and doom. That's just the other side of being good. All right? He's not... I say, oh my God wouldn't do that to me. No, he didn't do it to you. He did it to yourself. 56. Remember now, the world is a body. 56. This is about free will. But this one's about, right here. Jesus said, whoever has come to know the world has discovered a carcass. The world's a carcass. And whoever has discovered a carcass of that person, the world is not worthy. It looks like you got to look and think and find all these things, and people haven't looked. They haven't tried. They haven't said, and then they acquiesced to the people who said, no, don't talk about that around here. It's okay, I won't talk about it anymore. His disciples said to him, when will the rest for the dead take place, and when will the new world come? He said to them, what you are looking forward to has come, but you don't know it. This is just over the top, my friends. But I would love to have some discussion with people that have some knowledge on this, which I don't have a whole lot. I got to be honest with you. I'm just starting to learn. Now, a lot of people, though, have locked in mental attitudes and just an absolute chiseled in attitude towards what they have been taught to believe. And they've just been dictated to. And I don't do that. I don't do that at all. I think for myself, and then I make my own conclusion and decisions. And right now, I see virtually not a thing that I was taught theoretically is correct. Nothing. And they don't care. They don't care about that at all. All it is to maintain status and power, and that's exactly what it even says in the Bible. 2 Peter 2:2. Let's just look at that one quick. I've been screaming about the professors, universities. There's nothing. It's 100% fraud as far as I can determine. If you go to learn a trade or learn programming or something like that, that's fine. But if you go there to learn any of this other stuff, it's just all fraud. And they're telling you, don't believe in God. Forget about that. It's all nonsense. Go with Darwin. You know, go with 100-million-year-old everything, and the light never slows down. All of that stuff is nonsense, absolute nonsense. They're here to control you and to use you for their own means. And listen to what it says right here. This is 2 Peter 2:2. There were false prophets among the people, even as there will be false teachers among you. They're all prophesizing. You can have false teachers. They will privily bring in damnable heresies. Darwinism. Forget God. That's all nonsense. Even denying the Lord. Deny him. They say, you believe in God, don't bring it here. Don't bring it to school. That's completely separate from thinking. If you believe that stuff, you're insane. So don't try to do it where there's science. Well, their science has failed miserably. So they deny the Lord that bought them with his life. And that will bring upon themselves swift destruction. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, these are the students, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And that's what I'm spoken of in very evil tones, because I bring truth. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have been assaulted in about as many ways as a person can be assaulted to without being nailed on a cross. So you want to come up and talk about God in this realm, you are in deep trouble, because they will put you to the side and ruin your life. As far as I can determine, that is their mission in life now, is strictly self-interest and to destroy anybody that wants to discuss creation or God or the ancient texts in any way of, investigative way. You can demean them. They love that. Oh, it's a big spectacle. These people are such idiots. These fools. And then they always throw in, everybody thinks the earth is flat. If you believe in God, you have to believe the earth is flat. And they convince a bunch of people to say that, which made everything look worse. The earth is not flat right now. But at one time, it could have very well been. It was chaos. Who knows what it was. When these things were written, it was different. Not now. These people do this to me every single time I put up something, and then they assault me for my showing what really does exist. And you're not helping the cause here. I am showing you that Jesus was sent here to warn us about these false teachers. That's what he was sent here to do, and warned us. This is what's going to happen, and if you follow them, you are going to go against truth, and you are going to be used by them. You pay them, and then they force you to say whatever they tell you to say, and if you don't say it, they ruin your life, and still keep your money. So it ends up, you really have almost no options other than to fall to their dictates. And they have what's called peer review, which means that if you bring up something like I do, they won't publish you, they will put you down, they will report you to every agency that talks about truth and realism and all this stuff, because to them it's not true, it has nothing to do with it, because they won't look. They never look. All they do is assault. And they with Velikovsky, they did the same thing. Forced him to take his books off the bookshelves. When they went to talk about these people, they said, I wouldn't read that nonsense. Who could even think to read that nonsense? And they destroyed him without ever even looking. And all he did was collect the stories that were written by the ancient peoples and documented in every single way in every single culture on Earth. And they had the same story. Venus was what caused it caused a great flood. Now, I'm not 100% certain it was Noah's flood, but I am certain it caused my mud fossils. And that's what when I discovered it, I realized these were all products of a certain chemical process called nucleophilic substitution. But it also needed hot water and a long soaking time. And that's what Venus brought to the table. So it validated everything that was said in the past. And once I found Typhon in the desert, and I looked up Apollodorus 1.6.3, that sealed the case for me. That put me on this road to discovery. All right, don't forget. Don't forget, my friends. Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. Don't close your mind. Don't say, oh, I know it now, that's it. I've spent 15 minutes, I'm all set, I know the whole thing. No. You got to look from everybody's perspective. If you don't look from everybody's perspective, you're just guessing. Now, can you fit these things together and put them together? Yes, you can. Do they seem to fit together in some sort of way? Yes, they do. Do they cover some of the things that nobody's ever understood? Absolutely. Do you have to open your mind beyond what an average person would say divides the line from insanity to sanity? Yes, you do. Because what we have taught sanity is insanity. We have become an insane society where truth is mocked and lies have no consequence whatsoever. Well, that's only now on this area of existence. There will be another one you're going to have to count for what you did here. That's my take now. You could take any way you want, but I'm just saying this is what I find. My take is you will be held to account for the things you do. And if you now understand the things that you have done were very wrong and the things that you did were wrong, then you change your ways, you can get out of this. But if you realize you were wrong and don't change your ways, you're done. And changing your ways means you stand up and you talk about truth and you don't hold your tongue. All right? That's what being honest is. When you hear people saying things you don't agree with, you say, well, what about this? You don't have to be nasty. You just have to say, I heard something a guy was saying the other day, and sort of bring it in gently. This is a shocker. One woman said to me, she says, I love your stuff, but it's jarring. Yes, it is. But we have been so misled since Jesus Christ was here that this is literally a new world, and it all happened because of Velikovsky's work that uncovered all these ancient stories that were insane, and he was called insane. They destroyed him. But when I found the mud fossils, I realized the guy wasn't insane. It's all true. He wrote Worlds in Collision, was of Venus almost hitting Earth. I wrote Minds in Collision. Because the minds today are just colliding. You can't get anybody to pay attention to truth. Their minds have collided with reality and they cannot take it. They can't handle the truth. I think you've seen that before. And that who pays for that? The students. Who pays for that? Society. Who pays for that? Your eternity. All right, you see this? I told you Ovid, he wrote Metamorphosis. Well, Metamorphosis means transformation. And what is a transformation? Transformation is into humans or gods or whatever they were into something else. It's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Totally different things. And they can do it at will. Now, the gods could do this. Wait till you hear this. This is right at the beginning. Book 1, paragraph 1, the primal chaos. This is book 1. He's got 15 books. So this is the first words out of his mouth. Book 1, paragraph 1 to 20, lines 1 to 20. The primal chaos. I want to speak about bodies changed into new forms. Bodies. You gods, since you are the ones who alter these and all other things, inspire my attempt and spin out a continuous thread of words from the world's first origins to my own time. And he lived during the time of Julius Caesar, right about, 0 AD, somewhere in that area. Now, listen to this. Before there was sea, earth or sea or sky that covers everything, nature appeared the same throughout the whole world, what we call chaos, a raw, confused mass, nothing but inert matter, just like everybody else says, badly combined, discordant atoms of things, confused into one place. There was no Titan yet, shining his light on the world, or waxing Phoebe renewing her white horns, or the earth hovering in surrounding air balanced by her own weight, or watery Aphrodite stretching out her arms along the vast shores of the world. Though there was land and sea and air, it was unstable land, unswimmable water, air needing light. There was no light yet. Nothing retained its shape. One thing obstructed another, because in the one body cold fought with heat, moist with dry, soft with hard, and weight with weightless things. Separation of the elements. All right, this is going to be really good when we get into all of this, because this is the flood. The world is drowned. Deucalion and his wife. This was all written. These were the words that were written 2,000 years ago, 2,200 years ago. So, and there's a lot to this. Now, let me just start out with his first words. Hold on. All right, don't forget now, this is Ovid, wrote all these 15 books. We were just looking at the creation and the ages of mankind, the flood, Deucalion, who was Noah, Pyra, Apollo, all of these things, Callisto. Now, here's the first words out of his mouth. All right, metamorphosis, or transformation, a unifying theme among the episodes of Metamorphosis. Ovid raises its significance explicitly in the opening lines of this work, of this poem. In nova fert animus putatus dicere formos corpora, which means I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. Accompanying this theme is often violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. He turned them into whatever he wanted to turn them into. The gods did it just for fun. And he brings this up in some of his statements, is that it was at the will of the gods, just for their pleasure, to make gardens and so forth. And they did. They had them all over the place. And they're still around. These bodies are still there, and they're not just bodies of marble. There is creatures inside those bodies. Let me show you, just because I hate to make statements that I can't support. All right, look at this very carefully. You can come back to it later and look at it. Watch this. This is the tendon that comes up, and it covers over the top of the kneecap. And it is a little dimple in there. And I show you this in the, I think it's called the Colossus del Gigante. I'm not sure what the name of it is. Hold on. All right, I believe this is called the Colossus del Gigante. I'm not sure, but it is a giant, and this is the tendon I just showed you. The blood is running down to his feet here. That's the tendon. There's his kneecap right there. It goes right over his knee, just like it did before. Now they turned to a veneer of very solid marble, basically. Now, you see this here? That's the fleshy part around, and this here is his arm. That's where exactly what is inside of your arm. That's where the muscles are, and the tendons and the bone and so forth come down from your arm. They tried to fix him up by putting in some rebar or something in there, but there's nothing you can do. It's falling apart. But when they were originally in there, they were just as solid as a rock. Now, where do you see this guy here? He freaked out because they could turn people into mushrooms, rivers. They could turn them into animals. They could do anything they wanted. And that's why you see all these crazy animals they had with heads of dogs, with heads of humans, and all kinds of crazy things. And they were just experimenting, it looks like to me. Or maybe they were having sex with animals and they were coming out half of this and 6 of that and 2 of these, and who knows what they were doing. They had divine blood, and they weren't supposed to be mating with mortal people. That's the way I take it. But anyway, that's another discussion. This, my friends, was at one time a living creature. They didn't build it like that. Check that out. This guy said, whoa, what are you doing? Look at this. What do you make of that? It looks like it's got suction cup feet and a little dragonish looking head. I don't know if this guy is part of that thing. It's just a mess. And there's these kind of things all over the place, and they are literally biological inside. When they break apart, you can see the biology inside. Something caused the exterior to just encapsulate it with stone. You see that? I just showed you that guy. Look at this. There are a great variety of types of transformation that take place, human to inanimate objects like the Nile River or constellations, animals, they could be ants or fungi or mushrooms. That guy was half of I don't know what he was. All kinds of things mixed up there. They could like Jupiter literally has a female body part called a vagina. It's the giant red spot. They never knew about this, but that's what it is. And that's what it said in the ancient text, that he gave birth. Or they're multisexual, they're anything they want to be. And Jupiter, the feared god Jupiter, who was Zeus, gave birth to Venus, which is what caused our destruction. It was planned. It says he wanted to get rid of the giants and so forth. And Noah was told to get a chest built that he could hide in. And it was sent to destroy the earth, basically, or at least get rid of all the giants. And then it went and hit Mars, who was the god of war. And it just smashed into Mars and absolutely devastated, killed Mars. Mars basically dead. Now the Earth was concussed violently, and that's where the Great Flood came from. I believe that's what it was. Velikovsky said he believes there was 3 floods, but one of them was fairly recent because all my stuff was on the top of the Earth. I didn't dig for this stuff. Almost nothing did I dig for. One little spot was dug for. That's it. All the rest of them came right off the top of the Earth. I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And some of them been DNA tested and CAT scan and everything else. So it's time to think about this in a whole new light. And, it sounds insane. But but the evidence is there to support these claims. I look for the evidence. All right, so let's do a little more looking.
Sometimes while exploring our wonderful world, we encounter amazing features that seemingly have no explanation. These situations can be challenging for a geologist, but also bring great enjoyment.
Okay, remember the thing I talked about, academics making things up and deceiving you with tales they have concocted? Here we have a geologist that refuses to talk to me because I show that the things that were in the past were well supported. So I'm not going to mention his name. I don't want to assail anybody. I just want truth. Listen to this, though. Listen to what they have to say, because it's always the same story, and nobody will listen to the facts. Facts mean absolutely nothing anymore. There's going to be a big nonsense story made up about this, and you should have seen the other ones. Absolutely incredible. This guy is so lost, I can't believe it. But anyway, here goes.
Sometimes while exploring our wonderful world, we encounter amazing features that seemingly have no explanation. These situations can be challenging for a geologist, but also bring great enjoyment.
Yeah, they can make up anything they want. And the things they make up, this guy here, he's got a wild imagination and no common sense. I showed him exactly what it was. He said, oh, I can't talk to you. I said, why not? He said, we have nothing in common. I said, I'm showing you the evidence, and you just won't look at it. So that's what we have in common, that I'm telling the truth, and you're not telling the truth. So I guess we do have nothing in common. All right, you see that? That's an artery. This is muscle. These are connective tissues. How would these layerings occur, and then this thing be right in the middle of it? Now, let's see here what his explanation is.
Many of the featured...
Oh, there was no explanation. He was able to examine them. Here's another one. Wait till you see this. You see this coming in? And you see these rings? I have the same thing here. Watch this.
have several concentric circles within it.
Hold on a second. I got to show you something. Check this out. This is the strap coming in. This is that one, the ball that I'm going to show you in a second. These are the teeth right under there that hold that, anchor that ball in. I think I've showed you some other ones that are tendon balls. This one happens to be laying flat and is squished, and that's where the strap ran off, and there's all kind of blood, and there's these little white things, and all that was biology, and this was like skin or I don't know what, which is basically the same thing as this, only this one's eroded a little more on the top and not as much on the sides. But you can see it's got the same sort of stuff as this has if you were down deep into it. And it's got the strap coming up to it. They all have a strap. It comes up and then it attaches to the ball. Can you see all that stuff? I guess you can. Now, all of these are connective tissues. That's not, he says, oh, the red stuff just washed out of it. Why would it wash out in circles like that? It's amazing. This guy is a geologist. He's supposed to be teaching people. And he acting like, oh, I understand all this. He won't talk to me. That's the problem with these people. They're perfectly happy deluded, and then demanding everybody do what they say. You see this here? Look at that. That's the same kind of thing as you see right here. You see? That's just like that. There it is right there. It's just like that on the side of the strap. I'm not just making this stuff up. This is obviously much bigger, but I have almost everything that is on the earth I can show in a smaller form in mud fossils. And a lot of them, like I say, well, yeah, I got bones. That's a bone with the cartilage and everything. The nucleophilic substitution in this particular condition was good. This is a goose head. That's his feathers. That's my buddy Caesar Augustus. It's a goose. He died in a flood, flat like this. Here's a hair follicle. I've shown this. There's where the erector pili muscle comes down, so your hair can stand up on end. That's where the sebaceous gland is, right there. Look it up. Erector pili muscle on this side, sebaceous gland on this side, hair follicle coming down, artery and vein on the bottom, hair coming up the top, flat on one side. This was a curly-haired person. The hair goes down, around, and comes back up. All right. Erector pili muscle, sebaceous gland, hair follicle, artery, vein. I've shown it a million times. I'm not going to go through it. I keep going over and over and over the same stuff. People are getting, so you keep saying the same stuff. Well, what do you want me to do? What would you do? I have all the same other people are talking about just theories over and over, one day after the next, with nothing to support it. And people love that stuff, because then they can fantasize about everything. Me, I show the evidence, and they say, well, yeah, that's nice, have a nice day, see you later. And I had another guy tell me, he said, you should leave some mystery in this. I said, but there's a lot of mystery. I said, the first thing you got to start is open your mind and say, wow, this stuff is founded in reality. Now, let's see what it means. Everybody thinks there's a dead end to everything. There is no dead end to anything. I've seen nothing that ever dead ends. And what happens after this life? I'm trying to prepare for that one right now. Because as far as I'm concerned, this one is snipped by pretty quick. I'm still feeling pretty good. I have no idea how long I could live. But I certainly want to be prepared, because this is like going to school, only you have to learn that the bad people set up the schools. I'm telling you right now. They don't care about truth. All they want to do is get your money and force you to say what they force you to say. And if you don't say it, they'll ruin your life. And if you think I'm wrong, go and watch Ben Stein. It's called Expelled. Every teacher that talked about creation or anything other than Darwin, right out the door. Because if you turn that over, everything's gone. And everything now is gone. All right, so I'm going to leave it at this. Well, no, I'm not going to leave it at this. I got a lot more to go. A lot more to go. So stick with me.